Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Unbroken Arrows.
You forgot the name. It's been so
I
long
did.
since you've been on. You forgot the name of our podcast, Catherine.
It took me a second. I was like, wait, I almost said Unbroken and Brave Foundation.
Well,
I was like, that's the wrong one.
that's the wrong one. But no, well, welcome back, Catherine. Good to hear your voice.
Oh, thanks. It's good to be back.
I have a feeling that from this point on, for a variety of reasons that we won't go into, but when you and I are on the podcast at the same time, it may be this way that you're on the phone. But we
Yes.
we won't go into that in great detail. But
Yes.
anyway, so how have you been? I mean, I know how have you been, but our listeners have not heard your voice for a long time. So what you been doing?
Yeah, no, I've been good. I've been busy. I got a new job.
Yeah.
Um, I am still going to school, so I've got that. I'm driving to class, which is a nice hour-long commute there and an hour back a couple times a week. So yeah, and we're just life's a little crazy right now. So
Yeah.
been very busy.
Well, that's okay. But since the last time you were on the podcast, I think that you had a late season pheasant hunt and a late season goose hunt, didn't you?
Yeah, probably. We did go pheasant hunting that last weekend. And we shot a ton of birds on Saturday. Sunday was pretty slow though, so it was more of like a cold walk outside.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also got into some geese, which was a lot of fun. The first 8 hours in the morning were not so fun, but once they started flying, it was a good time.
Well, good. Well, I've got a pheasant question for you. The other day, when I'll talk a little bit about my ice fishing trip that I went to Lake of the Woods with your grandpa. But
Devil's Lake?
yeah, that's what you thought the whole time. But yeah, it's okay. The
I
raw,
even asked you multiple times. I was like, "Where are you? Devil's Lake?" You're like, "No, Lake of the Woods." I'm pretty sure we had this conversation
yes,
like three times.
yes, and anyway, I was in a different state, Catherine. I was
Yeah.
in Minnesota, not North Dakota. But
It was just stuck in my head that you were at Devil's Lake.
yes, yes, I know.
I don't
I
know
had to explain
why.
it to you several times. No, the question I have for you is the morning that we left.
Hmm.
It was brutally cold, 20 below actual temperature, and we're driving well in that Lake Ponset area, and I would have to say that I counted 20 or 30 pheasants just out and about, strolling
Hmm.
around. I'm sure they were feeding, but when most animals just kind of hole up and stay warm and conserve energy by, whatever, finding a little snow cave that they make or burrow into. How come those pheasants were out and about at dusk, or excuse me, dawn, on a 20-degree below zero morning?
Gosh, I mean, I can give you a couple ideas of what I'm not super, I wouldn't consider myself a pheasant behavior expert,
Well,
but
let's give it a go.
is this like you're testing me or like you're actually curious?
No, I'm curious. I'm not testing you.
Okay. Okay. My part of my two thoughts are like number one, it's just morning, so they're going out to eat and then they're gonna go back. Because
Okay.
like same thing as like geese. When it's super cold, geese are gonna go out and eat, otherwise they'll just die because they need the calories to like keep themselves warm.
Okay.
My second thought is a lot of times, well, I guess was it windy or was it not windy?
It was not windy.
Oh, never mind. This would be more wind related.
Well, let's hear that. If it was windy, what were they doing?
Well, so like turkeys, when it's windy or raining, they'll go out into the open because they can't hear as well. So they rely on their like vision. So
Mm,
they'll just go out into like a empty meadow or that type of thing so that they can see a little bit better.
Hmm.
And I was thinking if it's windy, maybe pheasants do the same thing. But I think it's probably more just that they have to go out and eat so that they can keep their body heat up.
Okay. Well, if there is a pheasant behavior expert listening,
Yeah,
please,
somebody tell me if I'm wrong.
yeah, please send us an email at unbrokenarrowspodcast@gmail.com and say,
Oh, yeah.
Catherine, you're brilliant, or Catherine, you're a little bit off.
Catherine, you're just pulling information out of your butt.
Well, it's possible. It's
Yeah,
possible you're
don't
right, and it's
quote me on
possible you're just blowing smoke at us. But so I went to
that.
Lake of the Woods. My first time ice fishing in Minnesota. It was, as I said, we left here. It was 20 below, and I think by the time we got to Baudette, it was. I don't know if it broke zero that day. I think it. I know it got up to -2 or so, something like that. But it might have gotten up to zero or one above. But it was very, very cold, and we were at Borderview Lodge, which is. I would recommend it to anybody that is searching for any place to go up there. It was a lot of fun. Stayed in small cabins, but we also had the food package, so that was one of the things that we didn't have to worry about. We ate our supper and our breakfast in the lodge, and then the days we went out ice fishing, they took us out. It was about an hour trip one way out to the ice shacks that we fished from, and they gave us a tote, had our sack lunches in it, and coffee, thermos full of coffee. And so all of those things were awesome. And I suppose that those kinds of packages are part of maybe nearly every other resort up there. I don't know, but again, we stayed at Borderview, and that's what we did. But yeah, we caught fish. I didn't catch anything spectacular. And up there, I think it's 19 or 19 and a half have to be to 26, something like that, has to be, or 28 maybe, has to be returned right away to the lake for the walleye. And there were several of those caught that had to be returned, and some perch, some walleye, and let's see, sauger. I think that was it. But
Were you guys in a permie, pop up?
we were in a permanent, just a second.
You're good.
We were in a permanent ice shack. Well, it was on a sled, basically. It's built on a sled. And so there were just roads. We were on Muskie one day, and I don't know what other road we were on, but they have their wooden board street signs up there, which are kind of cool to
Mm-hmm.
see. But two holes per person, so there were four-man ice fishing shacks, or I suppose you could have any number of people in there, I suppose. But ours we had four people in there, and each of us had two holes, and yeah, they were insulated. They had a propane heater, and plenty of room. The first day we slept, or we fished in a sleeper cabin. It had two bunks in it, but obviously, I was tired enough. I could have laid down to take a nap, but I didn't. But so yeah, they were permanent shacks that they drag off the ice at the end of the season, and they have to store someplace, and then of course next year they drag them back on. It's quite an operation. We were talking to one of the guides about that, and when they deem that it's time to get those shacks off the ice, I think he said they hook like three of them together and pull them off, and then of course the bridges that they have over the heaves, they
Mm-hmm.
have to take them across one at a time because they can't pull like three of them across that at the same time. So But
Hmm.
that's got to be quite an operation. But it sounded like once they decided to get those ice shacks off, that it took them several hours to get her done. Well, probably a day, one day I think is what he said total. But they have like 54 of those shacks, I think they said. So
Jeez.
yeah, that's just theirs, and all the other resorts have their own too. So
Right. I know it gets pretty crazy up there.
well, it was interesting. We went midweek, so the the crowd wasn't there. We left on Friday morning, and Thursday night was pretty full of people in the lodge.
Hmm.
So I'm assuming the weekend crew were coming in and doing that, and so we got there on a Tuesday night and fished Wednesday, Thursday, and then left Thursday or Friday morning. So, and then on the return trip, I went to. That's one of the things that threw you off because you thought I went to
Yeah, I
Devil's
was
Lake, and then
really
on the way
confused.
back, we stopped at our family cabin and on Little Mantrap Lake north of Park Rapids, and you're like, isn't that kind of out of the way?
Yeah, well, you had said you're like, yeah, I gotta stop at my family cabin. It's the first time I've ever seen it in winter, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Then I'm like thinking about it later, and I'm talking to Nate, and I said something about, yeah, they went to Devil's Lake, and I was like, wait, that's North Dakota, but they stopped at their cabin. And I'm like, Nate, did they go to Devil's Lake? He's like, I don't know. You've told me like the last week that they were at Devil's Lake. It's like, crap, I don't know where they were.
You were all sorts of mixed up.
I was so confused. And I seriously asked you multiple times where
Hmm.
you were, and you told me multiple times, and I just could not keep it straight.
Well, there's this thing called active listening. When you ask a
I
question,
know.
to actively listen to the answer so you can
I feel
commit
like
it
I
to
was
memory.
listening.
Well,
Apparently not very well.
that's right. It's okay. So, but yeah, went with your grandpa's friends. That's who, they were a man short, a couple men short, and he asked if I would be interested in going, and so I did, and then we didn't fill, I think, that last spot until like the night before. The guy that went with him before decided to go again. So good people, good times. Um, it's fun to get kind of that laser type focus. When you all four of us would get into the ice shack, and then conversation kind of goes down to nothing because you're concentrating on wanting to be the first one to get the fish, or you want the biggest fish, or whatever the case is, and then what is it, Vexlar, the type of device. I think
Hmm.
that's a brand name, isn't it? There's what do you call them?
Yeah, it's kind of like Kleenex though. Like
Everybody calls it
you could
a
call it a
Vexlar.
Vexor.
Yeah, but those are. How come I'm drawing a blank right now? That's a type of uh,
Sonar?
sonar.
I
Yeah,
don't know I don't know what the technical term is,
you're
I
getting
guess.
really muffled right now, so I don't know what you're doing there, but
Oh, I bet I have my better.
yeah, better.
I think I had my hand over the microphone.
Yeah, that'll do it. But yeah, anyway, it was a lot of fun, and I would do it again. I don't know if I'd want to do it every year. It's a little expensive.
Are you thinking like a fish finder?
No, uh, they there's just kind of a common name that they they associate with that. It's not a graph type display. Well, this one, your grandpa, the one that I used, did have a dual display, but I'll either think of it or I.
Didn't did you take Grandpa's like um nice one?
The
His
hummingbird that has the
yeah,
dual graph. Yeah, it
not
had.
his live scope.
No, we did not take the live scope.
Uh,
No, he well, I can't remember. There's a story behind it as to why he didn't. Like the last time they went, he took it and he took a lot of grief for it for bringing it. I don't know. I can't
Oh,
remember.
funny.
Just because it was, a lot more equipment to have to deal with, I think is
Pack
what it was.
around.
Yep.
They're pretty sweet.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what you're thinking of. I just like a sonar or a fish finder.
Yeah, it's there's a yeah, it's immaterial.
Okay,
But
sounds good.
but um anyway, we were fishing in probably about 32 feet of water, and I mean the fish were on the bottom. I did
hmm
I did get one that maybe was about 5 feet up off of the bottom, but they were all down on the bottom, and that's what the guide said, that's where you're going to find them, and so. But anyway, yeah, I'd go again, but like I said, I don't know if I'd go every year, but we'll see if that happens. Now I kind of want to maybe go up and try to ice fish some of the other lakes around where our cabin is. Since our cabin's a seasonal cabin, you're not going to stay there, but you never know. It'd be
You could try
fun.
Devil's Lake next time.
Yeah, and then you'll be asking, "Where you at, Lake of the Woods?"
Yeah, I'll be so confused again.
Yep. Well, hey, Nate sent us a text yesterday, 2 days ago, about
Yes.
South Dakota House Bill or HB
Yep.
1236,
hmm
and I saw that yesterday that it failed in the Senate.
Yeah, it didn't pass.
So, can you talk to that a little bit? It's about a safety zone increasing from 660 feet to 1320, so doubling in size.
Yeah.
And so, explain to me what the controversy was, or what the safety zone is, and how that applies to hunting, and then what do you theorize that the reason why they wanted to double the size of this safety zone, and that's from structures, right? From houses,
Right. From
cattle's,
any like
cattle. How can I talk? Cattle's, cows, cattle.
cattle.
Yeah,
It's like any livable dwelling
right,
type
right.
thing. I guess I don't really know what they were saying about why they wanted to pass it. The biggest thing that it would affect would be like your road hunting. And even the way I understood it, we've got one property that we can hunt, one piece of ground that is private land. So you can legally hunt even though it's within that, um,
Right. With landowner permission, you could still do that. You
right.
could you could
You
hunt
can,
within that safety zone.
right. But the way that this like l new law that they were trying to pass is that even if we don't, so we own the property where we hunt, but next to it there's a house. It's like across the highway, there's a house. We would need written permission from the person who owns that house to be able to hunt, even though it's our private land
Hmm.
and
Okay.
it's like outside of city limits.
Right.
Um, Again, and that's from me just kind of glancing it over. That's kind of how I understood it.
Well,
I don't know why they thought that they needed to change this.
right. I did look it up and try to get that information, and I really couldn't find a whole lot about it other than I think another piece of that was that if you were cited for hunting within that zone, I think they tried to make it like a, again, don't quote me, class 2 misdemeanor or something like that.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Something that was actually maybe going to carry a little bit more weight than what
yeah.
is on the books now. I don't know. So,
No, I did see that too. Yeah. I don't know, like I haven't heard any issues with it being just the standard 660 or
mm-hmm.
whatever it is.
660, yeah. Quarter, an eighth of a mile is what it is now, and they just doubled it to be a quarter of a mile.
Right.
So, yeah, usually there's something that happened. It could be whatever. It could be a lot of times, and I know being in Nebraska, if something would come up that people wanted to change something, we always blamed, out of state hunters, that's,
Mm-hmm.
and so that could be something along those lines where someone was frustrated and went to their representative and said, "Hey, I think we need to change this." And again, I don't know, but how or
Yeah.
why, but it did fail. It passed the House, if I understood it right, but then failed in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
So it is no longer an issue this year, anyway. But I was reading. I read Outdoor News publication. I get the Minnesota edition, so it focuses kind of on the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, a little bit of Iowa. Occasionally they'll talk about Nebraska, but evidently Minnesota has legislation in this session, something to do with their shotgun zone. They have shotgun zones for deer hunting where only shotguns can be used,
Mm-hmm.
and they're and I may have this wrong too, but I think they're either you can use rifles right now, and they're trying to ban the use of rifles in there. But I think it's mostly because of, I think it was, if I read right, it was something about an urban kind of a law, so people could hunt closer to not only say structures or buildings, but also closer to cities and towns or communities. Because if they would use a shotgun, I've never. Nate has experience with shooting deer or hunting deer with shotguns and slugs and those things. But I would think a 100-yard shot with the shotgun is probably a stretch. That's about as far as you're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Rifles, I don't know, 300. Is that
I mean,
safe,
yeah.
or more or less if you're lucky, or
I would
more
say
if you're lucky?
people shoot rifles 700, 800 yards.
Yeah. So
I wouldn't.
right, right. But I mean, it's funny because I didn't hear anything about this. Nate sent that. I think it was something from maybe a sportsman association webpage or something that he sent to us. And then I'm looking through the next day at Outdoor News, and here's a similar thing that's going through the legislation in Minnesota. So it must be something that's a little bit more in focus for some reason. Not sure why.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure why.
Yeah.
But hey, one thing that I did see in Outdoor News. Let's see how you are with your. I suppose it's trivia, but
Are we going to crossbows?
well, we'll go to crossbows here in a second. Yes,
Oh.
but the there's an article I think in my latest issue talking about the 2025 deer report, and it's about the deer harvest, but it's always several years in arrears. So I think the most recent data they have is like 2023 data. But based upon the 2023 deer harvest, I'm going to give you three numbers. No, excuse me. I'm going to give you five numbers of, and these are total deer harvested in five different states. And then I'll give you the states, and let's see if you could match them up. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Do,
I
do, you,
gotta
under,
really,
do you understand what I'm saying?
yeah, I gotta really think. All right.
Okay. So the first number is 34,238. The next number, 48,629. The next number, 34,379. Then 300,651.
Jeez.
Yeah. And 104,274.
Okay.
Okay, so those are the five numbers, And the states
Yeah.
are Nebraska, South Dakota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and North Dakota. So let's start easy and let's just go, who do you think is the high and who do you think is the low?
Gosh. I want to say let me think. This is 2023.
And based upon, they published 3 years, so 2021, 22, 23. And to be honest, I think they all were, there weren't any big spikes or any dips in those 3 years.
Wait,
So it's pretty consistent.
so this is a 3-year total?
No, 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 no. This is just I'm only using 2023 numbers.
Okay.
So
I was
yeah,
okay.
some state in one state, 300,000 over 300,000 deer were harvested in 1 year.
I want to say Wisconsin, but I also know Wisconsin's had a lot of like EHD and CWD stuff. No, I'm gonna go Wisconsin for the.
And you're right. Yeah,
Am
Wisconsin,
I?
300,000 deer harvested in Wisconsin. That just blows my mind. Especially when you're talking about, the next closest one is 104,000 plus,
Yeah.
and then you're down to the 34 to 48,000. So who do you think has the least number of whitetail?
The least.
The
I
le-
wanna I wanna say North Dakota just because there's the least amount of people in North Dakota, and I don't think North Dakota gets a ton of out-of-state people.
Okay, final answer.
North Dakota.
You're right. I'm impressed. I'm
It is.
impressed. You're two
Good.
for two. Okay, so now you've got three different numbers here left and three states left. So Nebraska, Iowa, and South Dakota. And one is 104,000 plus, one's 34,000, which is just like 100 more deer than North Dakota, and then 48,600.
And this is only for whitetails.
This is only whitetail, right?
So Iowa doesn't, I mean, Iowa only has whitetail. Well, South Dakota has, and Nebraska both have whitetail and mule deer. That kind of split the deer harvest. So I'm gonna go Iowa for the 100,000.
Very good. You're three for three. I'm,
I'm so
you
good at
know,
this.
this is just amazing.
And then it's like 34,000 and 48,000.
Correct.
I don't know. These are hard.
You're doing pretty well so
I
far.
know. I know, but I'm gonna mess it up here. I don't know.
See, while you're thinking, I'm going to ask you a question to, help you clear your thoughts in terms of your
Okay.
final answer. But Iowa has some unique deer hunting regulations, don't they? Because,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
they're weird.
the most of Nate's deer hunting growing up in Iowa was with a shotgun, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's more prevalent, or is it, than rifle, or was that just his family's preference?
No, Iowa doesn't have rifle, which it's weird now. So, I mean, growing up, it was for Nate anyways, it was a little bit stricter on what they can and can't use, um, in terms of like their shotgun season, but they aren't allowed to use rifles.
At all.
But right,
Are
but
you sure about
now,
that?
yeah, except now it's like you can use a lot of like straight wall cartridges and then also like I'm not great on my like gun types, but like a 300 Legend or something like that.
Okay, well,
Um,
you're much more educated than I am because I don't even know what a straight wall cartridge is compared to anything else.
yeah,
So,
I don't, I just don't, yeah,
so it's
weird.
specialized. In other words, it's not a you can't take a 270, or a
Right.
30
No,
6 or something that you would normally use, say in South Dakota or Nebraska,
right.
and use it in Iowa. So it's specialized. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like any of your normal shotguns, your 10, your 12, your 16, and 20, and then they have those specified. And yeah, I don't. I can't tell you them all because that we didn't do that growing up. I could tell you more about rifles, but yeah, so it's only shotgun. They have a muzzle loader season and then archery.
Okay. Well, now you're down to your final
I know.
two states.
Gosh, I feel like both states, when people are traveling to hunt both states, it's more for mule deer than whitetail. Like I don't know anyone that's like, I'm gonna go shoot a whitetail in South Dakota. So I want to just go with population again. There's more people in Nebraska, right?
Then South Dakota?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know though.
I find it interesting that, it's my
Nebraska
home
has,
state and your home state are the final two answers that you're
I know.
you're dealing with here. So,
The other ones are easy. Wisconsin's like known for being deer central, and if Iowa doesn't have mule deer, of course they're gonna have more deer kills, whitetail deer kills.
well, I
I don't
know.
know. We'll go. Nebraska has a little bit more than South Dakota.
Oh,
No, I
Catherine.
knew it. I knew it.
Yeah. South Dakota has the 48,629 and Nebraska the 34,379.
Dang.
So, yeah, but your logic was really, really good there, I thought, because, I forgot about the fact that a lot of people chase mule deer around in both those states, too. So,
Right.
but,
And North Dakota too,
mm, yeah. Yeah, but you're
which
right.
would make
Population in North Dakota, and also, in November it could be polar there.
right.
So there's a couple of factors there. But that report, and now you mentioned something about crossbows, and again, reading outdoor news, there's every week there's something about crossbows, and again, a lot of that is stemmed from, I think last year was the first year or the last year of a mandatory allowing crossbow to be considered a piece of archery equipment.
Hmm.
And so people could use crossbows during archery season. And so without any, from what I read, it's a situation where that was something that came through the legislature, not from the DNR. Again, I may be wrong with that, but it caused kind of an uproar with that. But the overall deer harvest in 2023, okay, so we're going just that year, and of weapon type, and of the four different weapon types. So you've got firearms, you've got bow, crossbow, you've got other, which I had to read the article in depth to find what might be other. What do you think is other?
Slingshots.
Slingshots, yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I
Pistols,
don't know. I would say pistols, yeah.
yeah. And then muzzleloader was the fourth category. So I don't think it's a big you know it wouldn't be difficult to list those in order in terms of what weapon harvested the most deer. So what do you think?
Okay, wait, sorry. I have,
Firearms, other, bows and crossbows, and muzzleloaders.
oh, probably firearms, bows and crossbows, muzzle loaders, other.
Yep. Yeah, just what you'd expect, in my opinion. But what percent, and I'll give you a, plus or minus 15% kind of margin of error there. What percent do you think of deer harvested did come from vertical bows or crossbows?
Oh, I'll
You and
say,
you're really doing well, so I
I
expect you to
know.
I expect you to be within that range, which is a pretty big range.
Um, 37%.
Yep, you're in there. 25%.
Oh.
25% were bow and crossbow harvest, 65% firearms, 9% muzzle loaders, and then 1% other. I still get a kick out of that. But, you know, they don't have it broken down into crossbow and bow, although some states do have that information. And I don't have that right in front of me. Just a second again. But I have it because I've been in communication with, well, I think I have it from Minnesota and I think I have it from Nebraska. But the only way you use a crossbow in South Dakota is if you qualify for it on a
Hmm.
medical waiver. But I know you have your strong feelings about this, but you know the letters that come in to, again, I'm referring primarily to Outdoor News, but the letters that come in really just talk to the fact that it's not fair that archery hunters have to give up their long season to put up with people that can go out and use a crossbow. And from the very first time I heard this debate or this argument, my thought was, you know, if it's that big of an issue, then let's make it a separate season. You know, you have a firearm season, right?
Hmm.
And people are saying that, okay, crossbows are like a firearm. It's closer to a firearm than it is a compound bow. So if that's the case, why don't, I would guess, since firearm is only usually a week and 2 weekends, right? Is that the same way it is in, if that's the way it is in Nebraska? Is that the way it is in South Dakota for the
Mm,
length of the season? And I'm not
yeah,
talking muzzle
yeah.
loaders.
No, I know. It might be 2 full weeks, but I couldn't tell you
Okay,
off the top of
I
my
should
head.
have I should have done my research there. But do you
No,
see what
you're.
I'm saying? You know, it's if you don't want to compete with people using crossbows, then then why not promote a season all to themselves? Now, whether it's just a week or maybe a week early season and a week later season, I don't know what the answer is, but I think that's the logical way to fix it because firearms only get a week, you know.
Mhm.
So I don't know. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I could see that. Um, I don't I don't necessarily have anything against crossbows like as a archery weapon. What I don't like is I gotta think of how to say this to where I don't just sound like rude. Um, what I think we need to maybe be careful of is introducing crossbows to like able kids at an earlier age because I think we're going to lose the sport of archery. Like your vertical bow, compound bow hunting to some extent if everyone's just going to crossbows. Because like as a parent, you don't have a ton of time, right? And so if your kid wants to archery hunt, you can just give them a crossbow and you can go out and sight it in and shoot them with it, like have them shoot it a couple times. It doesn't take the same process as a vertical bow does.
Okay, now I need to back up. Did you say evil?
No,
I thought you said evil kids.
no,
No, what did
able,
Able?
able
A
kids.
B L E.
able.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I was like, I never ever got that perspective of hunting. Wow. Okay, able. There you go. Okay,
No.
now see now that is to me a legitimate argument because you're talking about the the purest side of things. You know, now but can you take the same can you make that same argument though for, shooting rifles? You can go out
I don't,
and you can take your you can get a youth 270 and go out and target practice for a while, a day or two, and then go out and harvest a deer, which your percentages would be of success would be higher than even it would be with crossbow.
oh, for
But
sure.
you don't have the length of time that you're talking about. That's what you're saying. You're saying that somebody that can go out and crossbow from September 15th to December 31st or something like that.
Right. I don't see people wanting to get into compound, like hunting with a compound bow when they have the option of a crossbow for the same season, for the same amount of time. When, of course, there's still going to be some people, right? Because, like, Nebraska has open crossbow laws, and there's still plenty of people that hunt with a compound bow, with a vertical bow.
Correct.
But I do think you're going to lose a lot of, I think the biggest thing would be kids. Like, I think you're going to lose a lot of kids that the parents would have otherwise put the effort in to have them start shooting a compound bow when instead they can say, oh, here's this crossbow, it's already sighted in, let's go shoot it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where you're going to run into a lot of issues. And you still have to make the shot with a crossbow, right? You still have
Right.
to
Right.
do the thing. But there's definitely a advantage, just like there is with rifle. I'd be the first one to tell you it's way easier to shoot a deer with a rifle than it is a bow. I've shot a rifle deer every single time I've had a tag, and I have eaten tag soup 90% of the time with my archery tag.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not like trying to be like, oh, it's just you, like, people aren't doing it right. They're taking the easy way out because, yeah, I shoot deer with rifles too. Like, I'm not, yeah, I don't
Right.
know. I don't know how exactly to explain it to be
Well,
like,
but I like that approach. I like that. I like what you're saying there because I think that it's almost like it's a efficiency of time issue. It would be easier for a parent to work with their child with a crossbow than to get them up to speed, so to speak, in the vertical bow. But actually, now that you say that, though, have read a couple of articles where they they've talked about how they have used crossbows to introduce deer hunting to their
mhm,
youth with the intent of then taking the time also to transition to a vertical bow when they're older and stronger,
mhm,
so they can
yeah,
shoot a 50-yard shot with whatever poundage of a compound bow that they couldn't probably draw, at 14 or something like that, or 15, whatever the
yeah.
case might be.
No, and I get that. And there's the argument of like, well, wouldn't you rather have a kid shooting a crossbow to get into it than like a kid not being into hunting at all because they can't shoot a compound bow? And I don't, there's this, I could argue both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's this like little, I got two little devils on my shoulder. And one's being like, yeah, but you're gonna lose the sport. People are gonna take the easy way out. They're gonna get the same long season without having to put in all the extra work. And then there's this other side that it's like, yeah, but it's getting more people into hunting. And if that's what they are going to want to do to be able to hunt, like great. So it's conflicting.
Right, and that whole R3 initiative of getting people more people into the field. I think that probably the most important thing is to establish people in hunting, the longevity of it, as opposed to just getting more people to try it. I mean, obviously you have to do that, but I think that there are a lot of people, just like in anything, people, well, I'm going to take up golf. Well, they struggle with it, they give it up. So
Hmm.
if they decide to get, try to hunt and they don't have any success, well, they're going to give it up. So
Yeah.
I think that there's that side of things too. But I think that if you have programs that can introduce people to whatever it is, whether it's firearms, whether it's vertical bows or crossbows, and really do a great job or the best job you can to introduce them into hunting for the right reasons. Of course, your right reasons and my right reasons might be similar. They might not be. I don't know. Some
Hmm.
people fill the freezer. That's what they do it for. Some people it's the thrill of the actual hunt or the stalk or the scouting, and those are all real pieces of the sport. But and
Yeah, I guess the other little devil on my shoulder says, well, if people don't want to hunt, good, because then the deer will just get bigger for me. Like the less people that hunts, the better, because then I'll have better success.
yeah, well, in theory that'll work, right? And then there's people like me that I haven't, I guess, exclusively used a cross. Well, I have deer hunting. I've exclusively used a crossbow and turkey hunting, and in the, I'd say 2000, what was it, 20? So 25, in the 5 years I've harvested two deer and no turkey.
Hmm.
So I mean, I personally, using a crossbow, I'm not impacting the population in, in a negative way at all. I'm helping it out. But there's some percentages here with weapon type in by state, and okay, you mentioned that Nebraska has had crossbows as a tool of archery, and they have
Hmm.
for quite a few years now already. And this is 21, 22, 23 in order. 12% of the harvest in 21, 12% of the harvest in 22, 14% of the harvest in 23. And for firearm it's 82%, 82%, and 80%. So, I mean, that kind of goes to show, maybe it's just the fact that that's just steadied. It's been around. I want to say 2014 or 15 is when or 12 maybe is when they started that. The two states that jump out here to me when I'm looking at this, Ohio's percentage of harvest for archery, so that'd be bow and crossbow,
Hmm.
48%, 47%, and 49%. Their percentages for harvest for bow and crossbow are higher than their firearm.
Yeah, I wonder what their season looks like.
Oh, that's a
Like
good
what
question.
fire
That's a
have, or like,
Illinois the same way. They're up the 45%, 43%, 44%, and then Kansas 47, 40, 42.
which Illinois doesn't actually surprise me that much because it's so hard to get a gun in Illinois.
Okay. I never thought of that. I mean, I think of Chicago. I had a good friend I went to college with when I was at Creighton, from Chicago, and he always referred to Illinois basically as Chicago and the rest of the state, you know, and the rest of the state was farmland. So I would think that there would be quite a bit of of hunting in Illinois, especially southern Illinois. But I
Yeah,
but I
I
may be wrong.
No, well, and yeah, I don't know for sure. I just always hear about how hard it is to get a gun in Illinois.
Well, and then like South Dakota, so relatively few of those deer harvested in South Dakota would be from crossbow, and but their percentages are just slightly higher than Nebraska, 17%, 16%, 18%. So, you know, I would venture to guess that of that 12%, like in Nebraska, 12, 12, and 14, I would think that the percent of those within that percent that's actually a crossbow is relatively low.
Mm,
So well, I think it's interesting how polarizing this topic is with people, and and then another, and I read another letter to the editor here, and I'm not sure who, if it might have even been the editor in a reply to one of those letters, talked about putting a fee on those that are hunting crossbow, just to kind of, I don't know, make it go toward deer habitat, or to make it just a little bit less, I guess, enticing to use a crossbow as opposed to a vertical bow. But
hmm
so, but I think just the simplest answer is to, okay, let's give people that hunt crossbow their own season. But I just I don't think that the numbers of both vertical and crossbow hunters are so high that they're running into each other all over the place. Now maybe some areas where public land is scarce to hunt on, and there's not as much of that. Maybe that's true. Maybe that is happening. But in my situation, I hunt mostly private land. So
hmm
I don't
Yeah,
know. It's interesting. It's interesting to
for sure.
to talk about it, and it's for me it's interesting to read other people's opinions, because it's always kind of fun. Well, as we finish out here, I just wanted to talk a little bit about things that are going on as we get into the time of year where it doesn't know whether it's spring or winter. Case in point, it was 20 below last week, and this week it's 60. So. But last year, the National Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic was here in South Dakota, here at Sioux Falls. But this year it's in Kansas City, Missouri, so that's going to be going on here soon, next month, March 7th through the 9th, at the Kansas City Convention Center. And if you want to learn more about that, just go to pheasantsforever.org, and you can see all the different things. And you can attest to this too, Catherine. It's a great event. There's something for everybody. Families, you don't have to be a hunter. You could take the family and go down, what do they call it? Dog alley, dog row,
Oh, yeah, I don't remember what they call it.
where
They're
where
little
their hunting
dogs.
dogs are, and you know
Yeah.
your kids can love dogs and pet them, and for all afternoon, and they're amazingly well trained dogs too. So it's a good event, would you
Yeah,
say?
it's a lot.
Yeah, a lot of fun. And then closer to us, the Minnesota Deer and Turkey Classic is going on March 14th through the 16th. That's at Canterbury Park in Shakopee, Minnesota. And to learn more about that, you'd go to mndeerclassic.com. So there are, no matter where you're at, there are different things going on. This is also the time of year for boat shows and outdoor shows and things like that. And we're right around the corner for some of those that have, you start to get into the home shows too, because landscaping and those kinds of things will be going on. So there's a lot of stuff to go on, that is going on in your area, I'm sure, that you can find to do in these what's a good word to describe this? Winter wing or sprinter?
It's like fall spring number one.
Right, right. Well, I tell you what, the last few days here have been just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, they've been gorgeous.
Well, I'd say we've talked long enough about different things, and we will try to. We missed our day by our normal publication time of Thursday morning by day, so this will be published Friday morning, but so be it, the way it is. But anyway, that's right. So, well, we'll be on next week again, and have a good rest of your evening, Catherine. And
You as well.
I thank you, and I will sign off then. So
Sounds good.
we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. Our immediate family has experienced cancer-related deaths as a result of leukemia, prostate, and ovarian cancer. It would be safe to say that every one of us has had our lives impacted by cancer in some way. A healthy diet and exercise through outdoor activities has the potential to improve a person's physical and mental health. At any age, if you are active, stay active. If you are not as active as you'd like to be, it's not too late to start now as a way to improve your physical and mental health. If you or someone you know is thinking of suicide or in need of crisis intervention, call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. You have to remember that the world is a better place with you in it. To all our listeners, take some time to get outside, enjoy the outdoors, and experience its healing powers. With that, on behalf of Catherine and me, until next time.